Okay, with Ken Barrett, writer and producer of BRAINLAND, 13-minute. It's an opera film. You don't see these often, opera movies, and I loved every second of it. So,
Oh, great.
first of all, congratulations for making an opera film that works as a story. That's not
Yeah,
easy to do.
thanks. Thanks. Yeah, well, it was a story that drew me. I mean, there was so basically I'd come up with stories when I was researching sort of visual art projects actually, and they were so dramatic, with attempted murder and not just this story. I mean, there are four stories in the opera as a whole. I mean, this is like one central self-contained story that we thought would work well as a small movie. Um, but yeah, they were kind of operatic in scope, thought. And I happened to have a friend, a college friend, who's gone from medicine to drama, another one who's gone from medicine to composing. And so I just said to them, how about creating an opera? And they both sort of embraced it. And then we brought in another lady who's a poet who's also a neurologist. So it was a kind of interesting creative bunch, really.
So there's three credited writers in this film, including
Yeah,
yourself. How
yeah.
does it work? Like, so you kind of come up with a kind of a blueprint of a story, and then someone writes the music. Like, how does
Yeah,
it
well,
work?
the stories were kind of there. They were true, really. But so I took them to Andy, who's the dramatist, and we worked. And we'd written together before. We'd actually written a screenplay we'd not done anything with. So we then worked on a sort of a story, which it's actually four stories that interweave basically in the
Mhm.
whole opera. It's a 2 hour opera altogether. And this was a self-contained scene which really had a story arc as well. So we worked on the story, and then we worked on the libretto, which is really it's just making it slightly more poetic and imagine people singing it. And then we gave that to Heather, who's a poet, just to sort of tweak the language. And then we gave it to Steve, and he was the composer, and he composed towards it. And we really went through the opera like that from to end. Write a scene, we'd share it, we give it them. So and we kind of get on well, so it was all right. And having done it, part of it through COVID actually, we then thought, well, what the hell would we do with it? Because opera is the most impossible thing to produce, really. It's so
Yeah.
expensive. Um, Although Steve was able to sort of digitally produce the score, but we, through a collaboration through a place called Morley College in London, who do sort of adult education, do experimental stuff, we were able to get the scene recorded with singers who were ex-students of there. I mean, at no cost, I have to say, in that stage. And then we then had this extraordinary luck of enticing a place called the Old Operating Theatre Museum in central London. It's a sort of 230-year-old operating theatre. And we went to visit it. I just thought it'd be interesting. And as soon as we got there, it's so atmospheric, this place. You imagine that 200 years ago, they were doing limb amputations and making holes in heads without anesthetic, in this very space. And it just had a sort of power, really. And so we thought, actually, we'd like to do it. And they liked the story so much that they said, well, we could use it for free for a day. If we could film it in a day, they'd do it for
Yeah.
free.
And you
And then
filmed
we
it
got
in a
a,
day?
we did, we got it's a first time film director, Chiara, but she's a theatre director and an actor and an all round amazing person, really. And she'd been in movies, but she'd not actually directed one. And so she created like a 35 shot list, and it was all packed into 8 hours. We had a day rehearsal before,
Yeah.
um, and then we had also a fantastic choreographer who also was on board called Adrian Look, who's a specialist in what's called dance theatre. It's a German theatre, a German dance theatre form, which is very emotional. We thought, oh, that would fit. So his students did it just for expenses, as well, what I mean, for the day sort of thing, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, it all just came together, but there are a lot of ducks to get in a row, to
I
be
was gonna
honest.
say it's like an army. It's like in like plus
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
all these background, everybody, like there's so many background performers who were doing
Well,
choreography.
they were the dancers
Yeah.
and I mean, fortunately, Luca, they're students of his, and they're going through a course, and he utilized the story as part of his teaching, as it were.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
so they built on this, and then we got together, and they absolutely loved it. They loved the sort of just being part of something creative, really, and it had a real buzz to it, and we had a fantastic, although exhausting, couple of days, and then and then of course it needed editing, and that took Chiara quite a bit longer than that really
I bet. I want to ask you,
to edit it.
speaking of the editing, I want to ask a logistical question because you
Yeah,
have them performing the opera, the two leads.
yeah.
Did they have to redo it in post-production? Like how
No,
did
no. What they did, this was the sound is the original recording. And what
oh
they
wow,
did,
okay, that's what I was
they
wondering.
sang.
Okay.
Yeah, it was played to them, but they sang along with it. You know, so they rehearsed it. So that was their voices and it was their timing and all this sort of stuff. So it was played to them when they were acting out the piece, and you know they were singing in time with themselves. In other words, and so it was recorded 2 years before it was filmed. And that's a good thing about having no spoken word is that you can, do you know what I mean? You could, and it all is in time, is all to a metronome and all that. Do you know what I mean? So it was easier to sync. I think in the editing, in the videographing as well because of that, really.
So so when you're watching an opera, like in an opera theater,
Yeah,
it's like you're sitting in the audience and it's like it's coming
yeah,
at you, right?
yeah,
And it kind of makes sense when you're in this big house when they're doing opera because it's like echoes or
yeah,
the volume expands. So when you're doing a film, especially the way
mm,
she shot it, very like lots of close-ups.
yeah, yeah,
It's interesting to watch an opera like this and it
yeah,
works. Like we're like, you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like it's like we're getting in there, we're getting inside that we're seeing their faces while they're singing. And we generally
Yeah,
never see
well,
that. Yeah.
I mean, the acting was fantastic. We felt
Yeah.
as well, you know, because we'd said the other tweak we did to it was that, of course, this is the 1930s, and these two very senior medics were men. But we
Yeah.
thought, wouldn't it be interesting to flip it and make them as women, really? And they really embraced it. And it's this sort of power struggle, really, between these two people. And you know, I don't. After a couple of minutes, I don't think you question that they shouldn't be in gender. You know, the gender should be
No,
different because
no.
they inhabit the roles really. I mean, because it's almost like being a medic. You know what I mean? You leave your gender behind at this sort of you
Yeah.
know, and you adopt this sort of role. But there's also this interesting power struggle between like psychiatry and neurology. You know, status difference that we reflected. We also lucky my sister, sorry, my daughter-in-law, who's Francesca Prisone, is an Italian. Um, she's worked in film in costume for years, and she said she'd do the costumes for us. So we had that as well. You know, we had a lot of people on board with this.
So
They were very
yeah, I
grateful
love
for it.
the idea of like the opera movie and it kind of has a bitter, well, it kind of has a tragic ending, but then you kind of tagline it where it's not as tragic as we thought, but it's very
Yeah,
opera-esque, if I'm allowed to say
it
that.
is absolutely, and it's
Yeah.
true. Actually, it was almost true. Actually, we had 7 shots. It was actually shot 6 times. No, so we had 5 shots. He was shot 6 times, but one of them shot his finger off. So we thought, well, we'll leave that one out. It seemed to work better musically to have 5 shots, really.
Yeah.
Um,
But he
yeah,
survived.
and sorry, he
He
survived.
survived.
Yeah, he was in a wheelchair sort of afterwards, but he survived and went back to work. I mean, it was extraordinary. And it, you know, obviously we took liberties with the timing because this was 3 years later, and it wasn't one of the patients who'd had the operation stuff like
Sure.
that. But you know, there's no way of doing that. And Alessandro, who played the dancer who played the assassin, was so sort of in it. You know what I mean? Was so sort of intense when he did it. Really. That, oh well, you know, this really it really felt like work. I've seen it lots of times, and every time I hear a shot, I still jump. You know what I mean? It's that sort of
Yeah.
it's still shocking. You know, it works sort of dramatically. We feel.
It does. Well, but it's amazing that they survived. Like especially in that time, you get shot. The
Oh, I
medical,
would say 5 times in his body. He took 5 bullets. You know, it
yeah,
wasn't
and
like
the medical wasn't what it is today, right? Like,
no,
yeah,
no, no. But I mean, you know, it wasn't like Pulp Fiction. You know, where this nervous guy shoots and just misses him the whole time. It really
yeah.
did shoot him 5 times, and it was in his office actually in real life. But it obviously just missed vital organs. You know, and he lived to about 1954, I think. After this,
Okay.
yeah, it didn't shorten his life, but it makes a very dramatic uh, finale. Put it that way.
It's a great title, Brainland.
Yeah, yeah, everything's a land at the minute, and we've got a because it basically this story is set in 1935. the other psychosurgery story, which we're going to film next, but with puppets actually, is set in 1946 in the States, and this was Portugal. And
Mhm.
then we've got another story that's set in Germany in 1924 and 1935. Well, in the late 1930s. And then the other story, the encompassing story, which is about military funding of neurotechnology in the 1950s, which is not a well-known story, but you know, it's real. Is set in the 1950s, and it's set on a US Air Force base. And they're all true stories, these. They interweave in the whole, so that the hope is that either we film each one piecemeal and then we string them together for a whole opera, or we convince somebody that they really want to see this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Somebody with money, they'd like to put this on, but the other thing is that the music really worked. Do you know what I mean? It seemed to help the storytelling as well, which is what you want.
Yeah, 100%. And where did you find your two leads? Where did you find the two actors? It's
Well,
Hester and Jody, right?
yeah, Esther and Jodie. Yeah, well, this place Morley College, they have an opera department, and I say it's a sort of adult education. It's people who are doing other jobs and want to try something new. And all three singers have been through, and a guy called Michaelis Angelica, who's the head of opera, said he liked the idea, and he said, well, I'll contact some of our alumni, recent alumni, who I think would be good for this, and see if they'd be interested. And they were, and I say when they recorded the audio, they did it just for the experience, really. They didn't, they weren't paid for that because they were just experimenting. And
Mhm.
we paid them for the performance, finally. But um, and they didn't know each other, and they've got other, they have singing careers now. And similarly, Leo, who's a surgeon, he's in the chorus at Glyndebourne, which is the major opera house now in not far from where I am.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so we're all along we've been very fortunate to get people. I'm fortunate also that people have embraced the project, really. That it's been kind of a collective, kind of arts collective, really.
Yeah.
We're creating this.
And then so you said the editing was like it took a long time. So she was the director kind of took the reins of the editor.
Yeah, yeah. Chiara, I mean, she had, she's got other jobs. She had,
Yeah.
in fact, she just come back from Hungary, where she's been directing an opera, full length opera with a conductor. But she was fairly new to this last year, and yeah, she just sort of worked through it, and then she'd sent it out and get for comments, and we'd give some comments and feedback, and then the very last thing we decided to do was add subtitles, which we thought helped a lot, because some of the words are very clear, but with all singing, you want to get it first time if you can,
Yeah.
really. Yeah, and yeah, and she, we've all been, we're all blown away with it when we saw the final edit. But a lot of it was in the story. She literally storyboarded the whole thing and had, as I say, 35 or 37 shots, and some shots were sort of multiple angles of the same thing. So she saw it in her head, really, and the lighting effects were amazing with the most like domestic sort of table lamps and desk lamps and things like that, strategically positioned. But the old operating theatre was such a fantastic place for shadows that it really worked.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, and like I said, it's a unique film where like you you're really like the way they shot it is like you're really in their faces
Yeah,
and but it's like watching opera like in a different kind of
yeah. Well, you're not sitting
perspective.
back there in the theatre,
Yeah.
are you? You're right there watching. And it
Yeah.
doesn't go on too long. It's not like a 3 hour thing, so that
Yeah, no, but
always helps.
it's almost like a proof of concept of like if you want to
Oh,
do
right, that's
the
good.
full
Thank
opera.
you.
I don't know if you guys have plans for that.
Well, yeah, we'd like to, but I say we're filming it a piece at a time, really, because this was done on kind of no money, really,
Yeah.
as well. We applied for a grant, didn't get it, and so we said, well, if we self-fund this, would people work for less money? And everybody
Yeah.
said, yeah, sure. So it was it's been very much a collaboration.
Well, I
Um,
gotta I gotta commend the actors because they're just really good.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they
they're
like they're but
convincingly.
they're actors. Like They're just really
Yeah,
good
not just
actors.
singers. No, not just singers. No, 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 no. Absolutely. I mean, we were, and you know, and also a part of that was down to Chiara. She's a very physical director,
Yeah,
um, and although she didn't have a lot of time with them, it was, you know, very specific points were key. Some of the sort of tense interactions, really, and it was really, that was done collaboratively. I mean, we were involved in that too. You know, does this work right? Does this seem right for this, you know, this senior medical person to behave like this or whatever?
yeah.
Um,
Because what happened was that Jody on her Instagram tagged us, or tagged our festival on her Instagram.
yeah,
So then I said, "Okay," I went to her page and I'm like, "Who's this?"
yeah.
Right? Because
She looked very
she
different.
looks so
Oh no,
different
she didn't.
than in the movie, right? Like she
She did.
totally transformed into the
Yeah,
role
yeah,
of
yeah,
the film.
yeah. Yeah, well, that was part of, it's part of, we found this 1930s like lab coat, you know, that with, and I went to Francesca and said, can we make this? You know, can we starch it and make this and have this, you know, and then the hair had to go back and get rid of that, where, you know what I mean? So you were
Yeah.
getting rid of all the kind of femininity, really, and
No,
just
and she
having the
was,
sort of,
and that's the thing, because it's like sometimes actors get a little bit insecure about that because like you didn't really have makeup, like you showed her face, they
yeah,
showed
yeah,
both
yeah,
of their faces, right? Where
yeah,
like,
very close up.
yeah, and it's you see like the I don't know what's the best way to like the realism of someone's
You
face
do, yeah,
without the
yeah,
makeup.
exactly,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, no.
fantastic.
I mean, she was. Yeah, you know, she's been great about. Well, they've both been great, really. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad she'd sort of tagged it, really, because actually we've just got into another festival in Turin, which is very exciting because Chiara, the director, is from Turin in
Oh,
Italy.
great.
Something called the Auguri Festival. So we've had a second bite at this, really.
So this amazes me what can come out of people's come out of
Yeah.
people's mouths, like how like they're like this is the training, right? They just train every day for
Oh,
years.
the singing. Oh, yeah,
The
yeah.
singing, yeah.
It's to be able to. But I mean, if you just listen to the audio, you can hear the emotion, you can hear the
Yeah.
intensity.
You don't
You know,
even need the
uh,
subtitles. Like you
no,
can,
no.
yeah.
Well, it's true, really, but then it's something else to actually be able to enact that. You know,
Another, yeah,
embody
another
that.
context. Yeah,
They
yeah,
put it in their voice, but then you've got to, and not everybody works dramatically.
yeah.
You know, who sings in this way? You know, they may do oratorios and stuff on stage and things like that, really. So it's yeah, it was. Oh no, well, I'm glad. We thought it was good, but we're glad you thought it was good as well.
Yeah, no, they're just because sometimes I watch these dance films or these music films
Yeah,
where they're fantastic at what they do, right?
yeah.
But they're not like performers. They're not like actors. Like
No,
they
no, no, no.
perform
I know
on
what you mean. It can be
stage,
it,
but there's a
it can
difference when someone puts the camera right in front of their face and they have to evoke emotion, right? So
absolutely. I mean, that is so difficult, and I think a lot of opera singers get away with it because they're on the stage and a long way away from people, you
100%.
know. But you've got to be very brave to
Yeah.
allow that sort of intrusion into your.
Yeah. So I love to see the sequel if there is one.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, we're working on that now. As I say, it's going to be it's going to be it's the music's kind of different as well, actually, because it's set in the 40s and it's a slightly crazy story of this guy Walter Freeman who invented the ice pick lobotomy, which is such a sort of over the top weird development from what the other guy who's in this
Yeah.
Moniz created, that we thought, how on earth are we going to do this? And so we thought, let's do it with puppets, you know, let's sort of half-size puppets. So I'm meeting with the puppeteers in September
Well, that's
to
amazing. That's a
start
good idea.
doing the rehearsals for that. Well, the two together will be good, and then we have a sort of danced prelude that is almost going to be done, I think, almost like a graphic novel type. Um, it's filmed, but we're going to change the you know, the graphics so that it appears like it's a drawn thing. So it's just playing with media, I suppose, is a yeah. So
So
what? How's it work in the? It's quite complicated, your festival, isn't it? Really, in the sense you have these different tiers of performance of you know, theatrical and online availability of it.
yeah, just trying to get like I look at it from I was a filmmaker and I
Right,
basically went on the festival circuit. So it's one of those things where like I look at it like where I'm gonna I'm making the festival that I wanted
right.
20
So this
years
is your
ago.
festival then. You initiated this, did you?
Yeah, so I wanted,
Right,
yeah.
right.
So basically, it's like I want to do the festival that this is what I wanted to get on the festival circuit 20 years ago. So
Right.
basically,
All
I
right.
just yeah.
You make it yourself, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, but it's not everybody's different, right? But it's like that's sort of like how I started it. And
Right.
then it's tinkering through the years and kind of figuring it out. And then yeah.
Yeah. No.
What did
Well,
you
we
think
were.
about the audience? What did you think of what the audience had to say about your film?
Yeah. Well, it's lovely hearing anybody sort of comment on it. I think the one of them was sort of because the trouble is we're a very odd group in that two of us were neuropsychiatry academics before, but we'd always had art practices, and then we've gone full time into the art. Uh, the other was a GP, the other was a neurologist. So we're very, a very kind of neuro-educated bunch, you know, scientifically educated bunch, really.
Yeah.
And we recognize that you're trying to get across something potentially very uh, unfamiliar to people, really. So one of them was trying playing with the science, really, and that was uh, it was a bit Trumpian, put it that way, the science of that.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
So, you know what I mean? But it's just taking it. They're all very positive, really. Even the person who said she often makes her want to dig her brains out or something like that. You know, it was at least she sat through it. You know, it's and saw
Yeah.
some positives in it.
You're giving us a history lesson that people don't know
Yeah.
as well, right? Like, and it's about like things
Well,
that
exactly. Yeah, and funny enough, we're talking to a school about showing it to sort of 17, 8-year-olds and using it as a discussion on ethics and morality linked to science and this sort of stuff. So we do have other sort of potential plans for the
no, it's
you know,
important.
for the
These,
project.
especially in today's world where like people just make stuff up, right? So
Well, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Well,
Congratulations.
thanks.
And I love the idea. Like I love how it was like an army of like creative, talented people from the choreography, from obviously the singers, the composer, the director, yourself. Like it's and then scientists, it's like a huge machine to make
Yeah.
this.
Oh, it's been it's yeah. It's why I mean, I didn't see myself as producing this in a sense, but then so you produce this, put yourself, you know, and I guess you know, it needed somebody to bring it together and sort of
Yeah.
orchestrate it, and
Yeah,
yeah,
you're the conductor in a lot of
well,
ways.
sort of, yeah, that's the one who worried about how in the hell are we going to get this together, you know?
But now you know how to produce a film, right? Now you know
Well, I
like
guess so, yeah. Onwards and upwards, yeah.
so yeah, it's never too late to go to this is kind of your film school in a lot of ways.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I mean, when you got this, when you know, I went in my 50s. I did a master's in contemporary visual art, so it's like a whole other career. You know,
Yeah.
the sideways shift that I'd always wanted to do, and similarly with my colleagues. I mean, they're all, you know, if we stay healthy, then we got other ideas now. So yeah,
Well, I wish you the ultimate best of success, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot more festivals. And I wish
yeah. Well, thanks for the endorsement. It's been really, it's really good. Would you send me a link to this when it's posted?
yeah,
Then
yeah. So we'll post it in a few days, and I'll send you a link when it goes up.
that's brilliant.
All right, man.
Thanks ever so much.
Have a good